Magandang gabi po. Shalom and the peace of God be with each and every one of you here tonight. Excuse me na po. If you have your Bibles ready, we will be looking at the book of Proverbs, and then later on, the book of Esther, chapter 2. Now, before I begin, there were 3 messages that I had prepared for tonight. Pero abuti po tayong 3 oras noon. So I prayed to the Lord, and He gave me what I have here, that I would also want to dedicate to my wife, because this is still our anniversary month, and we are talking about the queens of our life. Now, before I begin, I want to point out that today's readings that we read earlier, both from Job and what's the other one? Mark. We will notice that James and John wanted to sit beside Jesus, right? They wanted to be in that position of prestige. Now, I've been watching, who among you have seen the show Designated Survivor? Anybody? Designated Survivor? It stars Kiefer Sutherland, and it's about him becoming the designated survivor when the U.S. Capitol blows up, and he becomes president by default. And he not only was the most unqualified person in the cabinet to become president, but he also had the most character of honesty and integrity. So, position. And he fulfilled it well. Watch the show, it's on Netflix, Designated Survivor. Now, it reminds me of a saying that your position in life, whether you're a manager or whatever you are, does not determine your character or your value or who you are as a person. But it's simply mere human that gives values to these positions. Because in the first reading, we are reminded in Job that as much as you want to elevate yourself, you are nothing compared to God's greatness. And in Job, when Job tells the Lord that, who am I? You know, you're doing all this. It also says something very scientific as a side note. In the book of Job, there's a verse there that says that you are God who put the earth floating with no attachments. So we were the first ones, the believers were the first ones who said that the earth was round before science even knew about it. There's a lot of scientific facts in the Bible. That's just a side comment. Now, speaking of positions, tonight we will be talking about the queen, Esther the queen. So we begin, and keep your notes handy. In so many ways, there is not a more powerful creature on earth than a woman. God planned it that way. God has given the woman a sense of strength and dignity that is not found in any other of His creation. Her influence through the centuries is legendary. To begin with, it is through the woman that children are born, and only through a woman. Chances are good that if there is any sense of direction provided to children, including ourselves as we were growing up in our formative years of life, the most significant influence came from that of a woman. The most dignified and significant roles in life is that of a mother. I've never met a man that I respected who didn't say that the touch of his mother's hand on his life made him different. The counsel of a mother is eloquent, even when no word is spoken. Di ba medyo nakakatakot yung mga nanay pag tahimik lang sila? Matakot ka na. Who hasn't caught that look from his or her mother, who hasn't been moved to make a decision by the silence of a mother, and certainly by the tears of a mother. I'm convinced that mothers also win ball games, whether it be football or basketball, especially baseball. If you haven't seen the show The Goldbergs, you'll know what I mean if you know that show. Who knows The Goldbergs? Okay, well, watch it too. It's a funny show based in the 80s. And if you watch it, you will understand why my wife, Joy, often calls Nanay Babes Mrs. Goldberg. What I've said regarding the power and influence of a mother, I would also certainly say about a wife. I don't know of a husband that I respect that does not confess that there have been times where the confidence of his wife bolstered his own, or even admitted that after an argument that it had drained away so much of his joy and reason for going on. Apektado tayo mga lalaki dyan. If ladies realize their power over their husbands, and I'm sure some of you do, I believe they would use it far more wisely, and I would say even often. Decisions that we men make, we who are married, are often made as a result of blending them with the wisdom of our wives, listening to their advice, seeking their counsel, and heeding their warnings. If I must speak only for myself, I can assure you that I am the man I am because of the wife I have. I can no more stand here in this place and speak to you tonight if it had not been for her presence in my life. You see, there are God-given strengths that are placed in the life of a woman. And it seems as though in abundance, there is no one. There is so like in no other creature. So I will name 4, although we know there's a lot more. God-given traits to the woman. Number 1, God gave her intuition. Intuition. Diba? Woman's intuition, alam natin lahat yan. Tama ako, kahit wala akong ebidensya. Because I feel I'm right. There is a sixth sense that is residing in the life of most women I know that allows them to penetrate the hardest shell and see beyond the thickest facade and to read truth when error or falsehood is presented. Alam niyo, pag merong kasinungalingan, kung merong hindi totoo. Women have the ability to sense character or the lack of character, while men seem so gullible when it relates to that. There is an intuition given by God that most women can enjoy. The perception is at times incredible and on occasion maddening. Number 2, God has given a woman an endurance to pain. You can write that down. Endurance to pain. That he has not given to most. An ability to handle hardship over the long haul. The pioneer woman, in America, there's a pioneer woman that is still to this day a saying in our history. They have the ability to press on against insuperable odds with relentless determination, to persevere. How many men have kept at their job simply because a woman in his life believes in him? God has, number three. God has given a woman a unique responsiveness that he has not given to most men. We men are far more closed or shut. Sometimes we're closed even towards to God or towards one another. But to the woman, there is a warmth. There is a responsiveness to the things of God. There is a desire on the part of a woman to grow, kaya mas mature sila sa atin, to react, to feel, and to show affection towards the things of God. And last one, number 4, God also gave women a vulnerability. Vulnerability. Most women I know are less afraid to tell the truth about their lives. That's why most counselors will tell you that 70% or more of their clients or counselees are women, because they're willing to share. They're willing to ask for help as well. I'm sure you don't doubt that. Just think of the last time you were lost in your car, men, and your wife said, why don't we just stop and ask for directions? But no, we men will drive 100 miles further just to prove that we knew where we were going. The women will simply stop and ask. Women are less guarded. They are open and willing, even willing to admit their fears and apprehensions. Slight though they may be, and acute at times, they will say so. They are usually the first person in a marriage to say that there's something wrong. I'm not simply thinking of the wife or the mother when speaking about these qualities, but to the woman in general. The Bible is teeming with examples of the significance and strength and power that God has given women. Let's look at Proverbs 11:16, and it's on your notes. If you can fill in the blanks for me, please. Proverbs 11:16 says, a gracious woman attains honor. So put there, gracious and honor. And ruthless men attain riches. A gracious woman attains honor, and a ruthless man attain riches. Isn't that interesting? There is something about the grace and the charm of a woman that brings her a place of honor that we men love to have but cannot obtain. Second one, Proverbs 12:4. An excellent wife, so put there excellent wife, is the crown of her husband. She is the final jewel. So basically, the woman is the uppermost crown. She gives the man, listen to this, a place of significance personally and publicly. So, us guys, when we feel that we are somebody, a lot of that has to do with our wives. Because they lift us up in honor, they push us. Kaya babae talaga, talagang nagko-control. Okay, next one. Proverbs 18:22. He who finds a wife, put it there, finds a good thing. So wife and a good thing, they're magkasama, and obtains favor from the Lord. Now, Proverbs 19:14. House and wealth are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. Ano ba sabihin ng prudent? Yung iba sinasabi nila, matipid, marunong sa buhay. Prudent basically means that you have a good sense of the future and you know how to prepare for it. So yung mga masisinop na mga asawa, yan, blessing yan from the Lord. The best piece of literature on a woman is in Proverbs 31. In 31:10 it says that an excellent wife, or in the older version, a virtuous woman, who can find? For her worth is far above jewels. Then he begins to describe the worth of a woman here. She has a husband who trusts in her. Of course. He will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. And then it describes her diligence as she carries along her role as a mother, along with her role as a wife, and in that same reading, she even has a business. And it's with efficiency and diligence that she carries on her responsibility. Verse 21 says, she's not afraid of snow for her household. Of course she's not afraid because she's prepared for it. Handa siya sa mga bagyo. And on the last proverb on your notes, Proverbs 31:25, it says, strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. Yeah. So when women are open and ready to face whatever challenges they have ahead, there is a strength of character and a sense of dignity in a godly woman that cannot be found even among the godliest of men. Verse 26 says, she opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. How many have learned good manners, or what I want to say, class, from their mothers? How few have learned it from their fathers? Verse 28 says, her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many have done nobly, but you excel them all. It's a beautiful presentation, dear brothers and sisters. The Bible is filled with them, and so is history of great women, along with the Joan of Arc's, Florence Nightingale's, the Madame Curie's and Mother Teresa's, and many others. There are so many early sayings about mothers and sisters and daughters. There are presidents who speak of their success as being directly linked to the mother. Abraham Lincoln, for example, says, no man is poor who has had a godly mother. Military heroes, statesmen, literary and musical geniuses alike often attribute the development and cultivation of their skills first to their mothers and then continuing to their wives. There are courageous ladies, visionaries, virtuous, self-sacrificing women down the history of time. In Scripture, some of them are singled out. A lot of them are singled out. Sarah, the mother of Isaac, wife of Abraham. Jochebed, the mother of Moses, who sacrificially kept him until he was weaning, graciously prepared Moses for the courtroom where he would live for the following 35 or so years of his life. Hannah, the mother of Samuel. Abigail, the wife of Nabal, who saved him from death from an angry David, because she knew how to handle both men. Nabal, she handled one way, and David another. There was Deborah, Ruth, Elizabeth, Priscilla, Lydia, and Phoebe. All the way through Scripture, there were these women that kept emerging, most of them out from obscurity, only to fade again. But they certainly have left their mark on the greats. Now I feel compassion, a lot of compassion today. I feel compassion for the woman of God who has had to endure the nonsense that comes from the media regarding your role, regarding your significance, your place in society. I don't know of anyone who would have a right to be more confused than the woman. All sorts of answers and messages or alleged proof, and you must wonder at times in your mind, what exactly am I supposed to do? Or who am I supposed to be? A lot of confusion right now. If there is anyone in your family who needs assistance, my dear friends, they are most especially your daughters. Your sons, sure, but a special measure of assistance should be given to your daughters, so they know what it is like to be a lady. So they'll know how to conduct themselves as a woman, a young woman of God. What it means and what it does not mean, especially if she is one of these intellectuals, and a lot of them are, highly gifted young women. And so many of them are, She will live with great frustration, and there will be many ready to give her script if you do not speak and guide and graciously shape her life. We are looking into the life of an Old Testament woman named Esther. We will be studying a section of her life. We are all here tonight Bible scholars, so we will be doing a character study found in chapter 2. If you're a bit familiar with her story, you will know that she emerges in a rather unusual manner. The land is Persia, and the place is Susa, or as it's otherwise called, Shushan, the capital of Persia. The king is Ahasuerus, otherwise known as Xerxes. I know Nina Marlene read about that a few Sundays ago. Vashti, the Queen Vashti, the former queen, was demoted from her throne. She's a forgotten soul, never to be mentioned again. The king comes back from war, and he's lonely and in need of the affection and care and enjoyment and the pleasure of a wife. His counselors say, here's a unique way that we can do it, O king. Let's find every possible, available, beautiful young woman in the kingdom. In all the provinces, let's bring her here. Let's take your choice, and she will become the queen. Sounds like The Bachelor. Notice in reading chapter 2 of Esther, verse 3, here's the development of the story. It says, "Let the king appoint overseers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather every beautiful young virgin to the citadel of Susa, to the harem, and to the custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let their cosmetics be given them." What is a harem? A harem is a special place in the kingdom where all the wives, this is a polygamous society, the wives of the king, parang mga asawa ng sultan, parang gano'n, and the concubines are kept. So the harem is a place with all the women of the king. Diyan sila nagpapaganda, nag-makeup, nagpapabamo, para ready sila anytime na tawagin sila ng hari. It's plain and simple. This is a beauty contest. Mahilig tayo dyan, mga Pilipino, Miss Universe. And the women came from all over the provinces. Josephus, the Jewish historian, tells us approximately that there were about 400 women involved in this rather remarkable contest. The women the plan was that the finalists would be given their opportunity, literally, to have an audience with the king. They would spend the night with the king. They would bring with them all their elegance and charm and seduction and beauty that they could possibly muster in a year's time. Wow! Isang taon sila nagpapaganda. Grabe. And he would make his choice once he's been with these women. Out of the midst of all of this, Esther comes on the scene. Ito na. Look at verse 5. Now, there was at the citadel in Susa, the capital, a Jew whose name was Mordecai. We jump to verse 7. He was bringing up Hadassah, a Jewish word that means myrtle, like a plant, which is Esther. That's a Persian name meaning star, as in the star of the heavens. She was given that name later in her adult life. So Esther is his uncle's daughter, for she had no father or mother. Now the young lady was beautiful in form and in face. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Now what you don't read in this passage here, the fact that she grew up with Mordecai, is that you see in between the lines that, first of all, she's a minority, because she's living in a captive in a foreign land. But her real home, or her people's home, was Jerusalem, the land of Palestine. Because of the turning and twisting of historical events, her people have been brought in exile to Persia. So she's living a life rather obscurely, syempre, Hudyo siya, hindi siya taga doon, obscurely, in the home of Mordecai. And I'm sure it was a sheltered home, a monotheistic home, only one God, a home of great care and concern for character and deep beauty. On top of all this, she had a physical beauty that attracted people to her. Naku, may picture lang tayo niya. Ganda siguro niya. Verse 8. So it came about when the command and decree of the king were heard, and many young ladies were gathered to the citadel of Susa into the custody of Haggai, that Esther was taken to the king's palace into the custody of Haggai, who was in charge of the women. Ayun na, so nakasama na si Esther dun kay Haggai. Now, what we are about to read, and you can take notes, in verse 9 through 17, are what I want to suggest are 6 different queen-like character traits. Not limited to Esther, but also available in our generation today. Okay, here we go. First one, okay? The first queen-like quality that we find in Esther is this: a grace-filled charm and elegance. A grace-filled charm and elegance. So here we go, verse 9. Now the young lady pleased him and found favor with him. The original verse says, she lifted up grace before his face. Napakaganda. Such a beautiful expression. So gracious was she that he, okay, notice this. So gracious was Esther that he quickly provided her, basically with all that she needed and so much more. It says here, cosmetics, food, gave her 7 choice maids from the king's palace, and transferred her and her maids to the best place in the harem. Talk about being pampered and indulged. So yeah, that's a grace-filled charm, and she found favor with the king and with Haggai. Number 2, the second queen-like character is an unusual restraint and control. Unusual restraint and control. Another queen-like character that we find in verse 10. It says, Esther did not make known her people or her kindred. In other words, she did not tell anyone that she was Jewish. Why? Because Mordecai had instructed her that she should not make them known. Sumusunod si Esther sa utos sa kanya ng may otoridad. Sometimes, when you know so much, pag masyado ka maraming alam, and you talk too much, not only do you get yourself into a lot of trouble, but you tend to be intimidating to others. Someone with incredible wisdom once told me that you sometimes have to dumb yourself down a little bit. Dumb it down. In order that you, number 1, become more approachable, and number 2, to be able to relate to the average person. Kung masyado kang magaling, hindi ka kakausapin ng mga tao, matatawa ka sa'yo. Number 3, the third queen-like characteristic is a continual, teachable spirit. A continual, teachable spirit. Or, if you're a basketball fan like me, it's being coachable. Verse 10 and 20, listen once again. The last part of verse 10 that we heard earlier says, Mordecai instructed her she should not make them know that she was Jewish. And verse 20 again says, Esther had not yet made known her kindred or her people, but by this time she's already the queen. Some of you, or people that you may know, have distinguished themselves in public service. They have served in prestigious roles and offices in their community or in your workplace or even like an organization or club that you belong to. You can be like the treasurer or secretary or whatever it is. But maybe a few of you or others have even the exclusive circles, very exclusive group of people. Na you can just drop names. Oh, kilala ko si ganyan. Kaibigan ko si ganito. You can drop the names of the most powerful women and men, and you know them personally. But I want to ask, does that change your teachability? Do you now see yourselves as the consummate authority? Or has it simply made you aware of how vast your ignorance is? I hope it's the latter. Someone once said, and follow me here, that education is going, okay, follow me here. Education is going from an unconscious state to a conscious awareness of one's ignorance. Diba, minsan the more you study, the more you find out, ang dami ko palang hindi alam. I have a lot of things that I don't know, that I learned. So dapat ganon. I think that's true. You have no corner on wisdom. All the name dropping, kaibigan ko si ganyan, kilala ko si ganito, all the name dropping in the world does not heighten the significance of your character. If anything, it reduces it. Kasi kilala mo si ganyan, pero andun sila, nandito ka lang. You need now, more than ever, to learn and to be teachable. Learning from even your children, your friends, and your enemies. How beautiful is it to find a teachable spirit in a very significant woman. Number 4. The fourth character trait is called an unselfish modesty. Unselfish modesty and authenticity. Authenticity. Unselfish modesty and authenticity. Verses 12 to 5, and I love this section. Now, when the turn of each young lady came to go into the king Ahasuerus, after the end of her 12 months, okay, 12 months ha, sabi ko sa'yo, 12 months nagpapaganda sila. No job, no responsibility, no cooking, no cleaning, no washing, no ironing. Sino ba rito nagpa-plancha pa rin hanggang ngayon? Taas ang kamay. Oh, ayun. No errands, and being pampered and indulged. Delightful, selfish harem of Persia. All the emphasis rests on becoming a woman of greater physical beauty. Again, 12 months, nagpapaganda. For the day of their beautification were completed as follows. Here we go. 6 months with oil of myrrh. 6 months with the spices and cosmetics for women. The young lady would then go into the king in this way. Anything that she desired, again, anything that she desired was given to her to take with her from the harem to the palace of the king. Kahit ano gusto mo, kunin mo dyan, bitbitin mo on your way to the king. That can be jewelry, clothing, perfumes, cosmetics, whatever you want. In the evening, she would go in, and in the morning, she would return to the second harem, to the custody of Shazgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not again go into the king unless the king delights in her, and the king calls her by name. Now, she was in this contest, and the one who pleases the king the most would find favor. Ito na, verse 15. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter, came to go into the king, ayan na si Esther. Now look closely at her modesty. Ito na. Again, she can think whatever she wants. She's special. But look at her modesty. Esther did not request anything except what Haggai, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the women, advised. Nakinig si Esther sa advice pa ni Haggai. Ay, grabe. This woman cannot be more than 20 to 25 years old. Si Esther. This is a chance of a lifetime for her to have whatever she wishes. Pagkakataon niya na to. But she simply stands on her own character, napaka-importante ng character, and advice of the man who seemed to know what would be best. There was a real unselfish modesty, a withdrawal from extravagance, and authenticity. Now, going off topic, sandali lang, I want to say that I'm impressed that these women took cosmetics. Cosmetics is such a huge industry today. I had a passenger once in Uber. He owns a makeup company. And I said, how come you Koreans, you're always in makeup or clothing? He said, because the profit margin is so big. You know how much it costs us to make those makeups in the stores that cost like $50, $60? It costs us maybe less than $1 to make. But it's a huge industry. There was a survey years ago that found that 25 of their ladies dyed their hair. Nagpipina ng buhok. Hindi lang ladies, mga men din, nagpipina rin tayo ng buhok. 22% wore false eyelashes. 38% periodically wore wigs. 80% wore facial cosmetics. 93% used nail polish. 98% wore some kind of eye makeup. And 100% of the ladies voted in favor of a resolution condemning false packaging or false advertising. I think that women who use cosmetics generally don't have the intention of appearing false. Cosmetics, if done well, will simply help enhance the beauty that's already there. It's not an attempt, if a woman's motive is right, to hide something that is not there. I am under the impression that Esther went into the king without fear. She had no driving interest in the process. You know, I'm sure you do too, but I love to see like really pretty girls or women who still have a hard time believing that she is beautiful. Or she blushes when someone tells her, ay, ang ganda mo naman. Ay, hindi naman po. Can we still find those types of women? Esther's whole life did not revolve around her physical appearance or simply making a king happy. In other words, she had her stuff together. She knew where she was coming from, and she knew who she was, and she knew that God's hand was on her life. If it was God's pleasure, that this is God's plan, then she would willingly accept it. But if she knew that this is not God's plan, she would willingly relinquish it. There is a modesty and authenticity in this woman that makes us suck in our breath. We're almost done. Number 5. The 5th queen-like character trait is a kind winsomeness. Kind winsomeness. Winsome. Regardless of her surroundings. A kind winsomeness regardless of her surroundings. Verse 15 concludes that Esther found favor in the eyes of all who saw her. Stay with me here. Esther lifted grace to all who saw her. I think that's truly remarkable, even to those competing. Mga kalaban niya, mga babae doon. You know, these greedy women who were part of the harem, Esther must have found some sense of favor even in their eyes. Because she has a kind of winsomeness, regardless of what's going on around her. Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus to this royal palace. Verse 17. The king loved Esther more than all the women, and she found favor and kindness with him more than all the virgins. So that he set, okay, here we go. Here's the great moment. He set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti, the former queen. Webster's dictionary says winsomeness is being pleasant, delightful, attractive in a sweet, engaging way. A person who is winsome draws you to him or to her. You can never get quite enough of this person. You are intrigued by this person's spirit. And last one, the last queen-like character trait is a humble respect for authority. A humble respect for authority. Verses 18 through 20. This is almost too good to be true. When you read of Esther in the last part of this, and listen, here we go. The king gave a great banquet. He even gave that banquet a name, Esther's banquet, for all his princes and his servants. He even made a holiday. Parang si Pacquiao lang, may holiday. Esther Day. Not yesterday, Esther Day. He made this holiday for the provinces and gave gifts according to the king's bounty. Verse 20. And yet, Esther had not yet made known her kindred or her people. Hindi pa rin niya sinasabi na Hudyo siya. Even as Mordecai had commanded her. For Esther did what Mordecai told her, as she had done when under his care. Again, a humble respect for authority. A strange bit of information is passed around. Sinasabi nila that when you marry, that you no longer needed to remember parental advice. Dahil parent ka na eh. You have your own way of thinking. Ganun daw. Or, when you get out on your own. Some people, you know, when they're 18, they get kicked out of their house. Or they want to live alone, they want to have their own apartment. You think you're really on your own. You think for yourselves. You believe in yourselves. You go for it. Whatever. Isn't it interesting that even as Esther became queen of the land, she remembered the wise counsel and was willing to submit to the authority of it? Don't we all find that the older we get, the smarter now our parents are. A rebellious, know-it-all teenager sometimes thinks how stupid and no longer in the know our parents are. But they got smarter. The parents tend to look smarter as us kids when we grow and become older. How beautiful it is to live with a wife who still remembers her parents' counsel and wisdom and advice. Si Joy, she would always share with me lots of anecdotes and teachings from her parents and reminders. Here's one. Sabi niya, bago kami kasal, paalala sa kanya ng magulang niya na magpapakasal ka dahil pag nagtanan ka, wala kang regalo. I have a feeling that all of you, in your own way, want to be a modern-day Esther. Who wouldn't? You say it's unbelievable. How can such a woman attain? But I'm telling you that it can happen for women and men alike. God does not mock us with this word that we just read. He isn't in the business of making his people squirm because we cannot attain the challenge of having a unique life like Esther. But you cannot get it by taking your cues and your advice from out there in the world, because you will never win. Now here are 2 suggestions as we close, and you can write this in the back. I ran out of space. Here are 2 suggestions that I believe will work in order to become queen-like, like Esther. The first one, ask God to cultivate character within you. Ask God to cultivate character within you. Ano ba yung character na yan? One good definition I like is, character is doing what's right and what's good, even when nobody's looking. Ask God to give you a discontent, especially the older you get, for the superficial, and a deeper desire instead for the spiritual. A discontent for the superficial. Ask God for that, and make yourselves available to receive God's strength. I like the prayer, the famous prayer of Socrates that says, grant that I may become beautiful within, and that whatever outward thing I may have will be in harmony with the spirit that's inside me. Again, as men, we have both spiritual and human nature. So let's ask God to give you that kind of authenticity, to place more emphasis on what's happening down inside your hearts, and less emphasis on the external. And finally, the second. So first we ask God to cultivate the character within, inside. And the second one, let's trust God to control the circumstances around you. Trust God to control the circumstances around you. So yung panglabas naman. Those circumstances you use often as an excuse for not being the kind of man or woman that you want to be. You trust God to control what's going on around you. Don't wait for them to be perfect. They will never be perfect. Remember what we read about. All these things that happened to Esther happened within the harem of all places. At the height of competition, surrounded by sensual, greedy, superficial women, Esther stood alone. Let us pray.